Hello. So today I want to talk about tradition. Oh, tradition. That could be the death of so many of us. So, I'm not a big fan of certain traditions, especially when it start to feel like bondage. So, where I'm from, there's a lot of things we do based on tradition. And I am more of I call myself kind of like a change agent because I don't do tradition too often. Um, it's okay to do something outside the box. A lot of our traditions are really, truly man-made. It's things that were told to us from grandma, grandpa, and them, DEM. Um, it's routine, things we're used to, things that people have always done, and no one has changed it. And if they tried to change it, they were ridiculed by family and friends. So I would say to you, be that person. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Uh, your family won't like it, friends won't like it, but that's okay. It's something to get used to. Anything you do different outside of what people expect of you or what they've told you to do, you're going to be seen as an outcast. You're going to be seen as a disruption. It's okay to be disruptive sometimes. As long as all that you do is led by God. If God tells you to do something different, it doesn't matter what other people say, period. So I give you a biblical example of someone who is non-traditional. So if you look at Ruth, I'm pretty short, about 4 chapters. Ruth marries a man, and the man she married dies. So her mother-in-law, Naomi, had 2 sons. One was her husband. And Naomi loses both sons and her spouse, right? 3 losses. And so she only has her daughter-in-law, Ruth, and her daughter-in-law, Orpah. Forgive me if I mispronounce her, Orpah. But those 2 ladies. Naomi decides, I'm going back to Bethlehem to be with my people. And she tells Ruth and Orpah to go back to their people, their God, their families. So they're both hesitant. They're going to miss her. They're crying, what have you. Well, Orpah leaves and goes back to her home, her family, her gods. On the other hand, though, Ruth, she stays. And Ruth is cleaving. She clings to Naomi. And she tells her, your God will be my God, your people my people. And she said nothing will separate us but death. So that's like I'm almost making a marriage vow, right? To death do us part. So she's in it to win it. She's in this. So they leave, they go back to Bethlehem. Once they get back to Bethlehem, Naomi gives Ruth some instructions that she follows. She's obedient, and she does. So the moral of the story, Ruth gets married. She has kids. Jesus is part of that lineage, okay? So Ruth and Boaz become the great-grandparents of David. So Ruth and Boaz have Obed, who is David's grandfather, okay? Obed has Jesse, who's David's father. And then if you don't know the story of David, please read about it. But David, wrote the book of Psalms. David ultimately becomes king, but he goes through a lot of trials and tribulation before he becomes king. The point of the story is, if Ruth had followed tradition, if she had decided, I'm going to go be with my people, my gods, what would happen? Of course, God could have used someone else for his purpose, but the fact that she broke from tradition, Abraham does the same thing. He leaves his land and his people. God tells him to. And when he does, there comes the Abrahamic covenant. God uses Abraham to build a great nation from him. So sometimes you do have to step out of your comfort zone, especially when God is telling you need to, you have to. You don't want to deal with those repercussions, but you don't want to miss out on the blessing that's in store for you. You really don't. Ruth could have went back home. She could have married somebody. But would she have been blessed? Things could have turned out completely different. And plus, wherever she was from what I'm reading, they had gods, not one God. So they didn't have the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They didn't have the one true God. They had gods. So where would that have led her? So I say that because I can be a bit disruptive with my family. So about 3 years ago, my mother passed away. I broke a little bit from tradition because we all gather at my grandmother's. So I decided I wanted Thanksgiving here, and that was the last Thanksgiving my mother was alive. So she and I cooked together. My dad was here, my husband, my kids, and we cooked. Then everyone afterwards took a nap. It was a good day. Usually my husband and I are on the road. We're visiting family back home. We're going to 3 different houses. But that was like, it took effort to cook, but I did it with my mom. So that was great. And then we napped. So we weren't running around on the road or anything. So the first Thanksgiving without her, I'd look at my husband and say, I want to do something different. I don't want to go home. And he just kind of looks at me. And I said, let's go to a restaurant and let's chill at home Thanksgiving Day. So we did that. We went to a fancy restaurant. We dressed up. The girls loved it. I loved it, of course. He liked it too. Whether he said it or not, he liked it. But we get back from the restaurant. My husband watches football. I cook a little something, not much, just a little something for us to have for dinner because we had no leftovers from the restaurant. It was a good day. We went to visit family that Friday or Saturday sometime, but that was just a good day. And it was, we weren't just running rampant. So that was different. So the past 3 years, Thanksgiving has been different from us. Well, this year, my husband works a job now that he has to work on Thanksgiving. And one of my friends pointed out, she said, God used you to prepare him for that because now he can't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. So we'll go somewhere and eat. He'll go to work for half a day and we'll go visit family sometime later. And I was like, that was God preparing us for the past 3 years. So that in itself was, just to see how that was ironic, for now him to have a job, he has to work. But again, I have a tendency to just break away from things that people are used to doing. Even when my mother passed away, the funeral, it was during the pandemic. And I know a lot of people probably thought, oh, she's probably doing things different because of the pandemic. Some of it, yeah, but some of it I just didn't want to do. I did have a wake, and, that's tradition. I had let people go visit the body, because I know people work and not everyone could make the funeral. And the funeral was on a Friday morning outside. It was July, very hot. So I tried to have it early in the morning. And of course, still being considerate of others and my grandparents. But I knew some family didn't agree with me. Nobody bucked up at me or said anything. I'm an only child, so I didn't have any siblings to, kind of go back and forth with what to do. But I did what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be boggled down by the tradition of being back home and all these people come to your house and everyone brings the Bojangles chicken. I love Bojangles chicken, but I can't do it 4 or 5 consecutive days. And I know people are being nice and everything, and they're just doing what they're used to doing. I can't. And honestly, to be honest with you, I'm an introvert. So I have to process a lot by myself sometimes. I really, really do. And I don't like to be a spectacle. Even at funerals, I think the family becomes a spectacle. But the family shouldn't have to entertain people till 11 p.m. or midnight when they're the one that suffered the loss. And I think a lot of families do it because they feel obligated to, because that's what they always done. That's what you do. The pandemic caused a bit of a shake in that for some people. And it was an opportunity for me to just do something different. I would have done it anyway. But because that's just how I am. I'm not trying to please anyone. I'm trying to do what's in the best interest of me and my family as a whole. And some people may mourn around a group of people that may give them energy, that may make them feel like I'm not by myself. It doesn't work for me that way. Everyone's different. But I just did things different. And I think it was a shock to some people. Even my husband, I remember a few days before the funeral, I told him I was going away for 2 or 3 days by myself. And he looked at me. He said, where are you going? I'm a planner. And I looked at him. I said, I really don't know. And I really didn't know because losing someone is such a shock to your system. It doesn't feel real. You're still trying to process it in real time. But it's almost like, hold on, did this really happen? Am I going to wake up? Eventually, I did go somewhere nice, a nice hotel with the best sheets and a fluffy comforter and food. I ate there. I had a massage. Like, I just needed to get away by myself. So I did tell him the day I left, like, where I was going. But for a while, I just didn't know. I didn't know where I was. I just knew I was going somewhere by myself. And I needed that time. So I did that. But my family was concerned, like, keep in contact with us, this and that. And I did keep in contact. They did reach out to me, but the way I process is just different. And I needed that time to myself. Did some praying, and did a lot of self-reflection too, on myself. I didn't feel like what I did was in the wrong. It just broke away from tradition. And sometimes you can break away from tradition. People don't understand. As long as you're doing things and you're seeking God and God is giving you the okay, or God is leading you, telling you what to do, there's nothing wrong with that. Approval from people is not going to get you where you need to be in God, period. Okay? And if people agree with everything God said, life would be a lot easier, right? That's not going to happen. They didn't even agree with everything Jesus said. So you have to be prepared to be different. You have to be prepared to be an outcast. You have to be prepared to be talked about. You have to be prepared for all the above. Like these things that happen whether you go with the flow or not, whether you go with tradition or not. So why not just go with God, period? These things are going to happen to you because we're imperfect and people judge. And that is okay. But you have to be okay with sometimes being the outlier, being the anomaly, being different, being unique, being who God intended you to be. That's the most important part. So I always try to get the videos under 10 minutes. So I am going to be out and be safe. Bye.